Before I do begin this video, I'd like to note a couple things. One, this video is focused on the Wolfenstein reboot series, which started with the New Order in 2014. Secondly, by no means am I a medical expert, so some stuff might be wrong. Anyways, this is William Joseph Blazkowicz, and he's just kinda built differently. In fact, we like to believe that he's the great-grandfather of Doom Guy, mainly because they are both created by id and radiate infinite levels of coolness. But unlike Doom Guy, Blazkowicz does have to constantly worry about the looming threat of death. He might be able to tank a ton of bullets in gameplay, but at several points in the story, we see Blazko getting super close to death or sustaining major injuries. Yet, the man can single-handedly turn the tides of a losing war. Essentially, being a one-man army, Blazko can just mow through hordes of soldiers and topple anything that comes across his path. Throughout the mini-games, he has had a number of feats, and has been through many things that no ordinary person should be able to survive. This guy's superhuman, basically. I want to sort of see how realistic Blazko's superhuman feats are. How does this man just casually disregard all pain? Of course, you might be saying, Wolfenstein is a video game. The protagonist survives a grenade explosion in gameplay, but arrives at death's door during a cutscene. There is one line in the reboot series that sparked this video idea in the first place, specifically at the end of A New Order during the final mission.
I give you enough toxins to paralyze an elephant. There's something very wrong with your cerebral cortex.
That is all this blonde guy is good for throughout the entire game.
Begleiter. Das bist du doch wohl.
I think that comment about brain damage may have been just to explain Blazko surviving a lethal injection of sorts, but I wanted to see if this could also be used to explain the other crazy stuff that he pulls off during the series. This ranges from surviving multiple electric chair shocks. He even gains health from 5,000 volts straight to the head. Getting shrapnel lodged into his head and falling into the ocean unconscious. This will be actually important later. Ignoring the effects of a lethal injection, which was said to be strong enough to knock out an elephant, and surviving a grenade explosion at point-blank range. So what is the only explanation given as to why he's superhuman? Recall that clip I showed at the intro, two scenes from it in particular.
The synthetic tetanus was some further inhibits your nervous system, shutting down your motor faculties. You'll find it harder and harder to move. There we are.
Oi! How can you be moving? I give you enough toxins to paralyze an elephant. There's something very wrong with your cerebral cortex.
Well, notice how he says there's something wrong with your cerebral cortex. The cerebral cortex makes up the outer layer of the brain. One of its key functions that we want to focus on is sensory processing, where your nervous system sends out signals every time you come into contact with something. The brain then proceeds to interpret those signals. This is also how pain reception occurs, which is what we want to primarily focus on. In Blazko's case, his nervous system is a bit screwed up, to put it lightly. You could call it high pain tolerance, but this man has been casually stabbed and thrown into more life or death situations than I can count. He probably does experience a brief pain sensation, but it seems like his body just doesn't invoke that much of a reaction whenever he does get hurt. The New Order does show the reason why this is the case. At the end of the prologue, BJ just barely escapes from General Deathhead's compound as the place is getting blown up. As he jumps out, a large piece of shrapnel gets lodged into his head. The only problem is that Blazko has also endured a lot prior to this moment, and this is where Wolfenstein: The Old Blood comes into play. Take a look in The Old Blood, which acts as a prequel. He survives multiple chair electrocutions, a lot of head trauma, and still manages to escape Castle Wolfenstein. He probably had a type of condition at birth or at a very young age that inhibited his nervous system in some way. It was only that he got extremely lucky when shrapnel was stuck in his head, which further buffed or nerfed his nervous system depending how you see it. The same condition also just allows him to quickly recover from his injuries, not like regeneration or anything, it's more like an instant rush that puts him into flight or fight mode. Blazko was put into a coma for over a decade. It's only when soldiers show up and pose a threat is when he actually snaps back to reality. The only reaction he gives to being wheelchair bound is...
Legs are locked, jelly. Fingers feel numb. Mother of all headaches.
His vision occasionally gets blurry, but otherwise nothing is stopping him from running around and just being a badass. From what we know about Blazko's past, we know that he didn't get some type of super soldier enhancement earlier before he was deployed. All this running around and shooting is just him being at peak physical condition. So why is he built differently? I find it to be more likely that Blazko was born with some type of condition that inhibits how his brain interprets pain. It doesn't completely nullify pain, since he still grunts whenever he's hit. However, it's dumbed down enough to a point that Blazko can just shake the feeling off and get back to fighting. I don't know if there's a specific condition in real life that would match Blazko's case. For starters, the patient needs to have some type of neurological condition where they don't receive or interpret signals properly. However, at the same time, the condition needs to not have an impact on their overall physicality. There is only one condition that I could think of, and the only reason I even thought of it was because of this old YouTube video that's like 6 years old. This would be congenital insensitivity to pain, also known as CIP. CIP is a condition that involves a person not being able to perceive pain at all. Sensors in the brain that would usually interpret pain don't exist in this case. CIP is a fairly rare condition, so it's still being researched to this day, but people that have it are typically at risk due to the lack of pain reception. Pain overall is meant to be sort of a warning mechanism for us, so when it's absent, there's a high chance that potential injuries will go unnoticed, since they don't have a way of really reacting to it. Now, of course, there are some limitations with this. Blazko still visibly reacts to getting injured. We can hear him grunt in pain whenever he does get hurt, so he still maintains some ability to perceive pain. Yet at the same time, he can instantly recover and never really bothers to worry about any physical injuries. For one last time, I want to go back to that scene I showed in the intro, where Blazko just seems to casually shake off the effects of a fatal drug. It's stated that the injection should be shutting down Blazko's nervous system, but his nervous system is already suffering enough to the point that the injection merely hinders him. Essentially, brain damage saved him from more brain damage. I'm more inclined to believe that Blazko merely has a similar condition, a condition that has only a couple overlapping symptoms with congenital insensitivity. So to sum it up, Blazko may have been born or developed a condition that inhibited his nervous system in some way. This condition heavily minimizes but doesn't completely nullify his brain's ability to perceive pain. In 1946, these symptoms became even more amplified after shrapnel was lodged into his cerebral cortex. So that is my theory. Is it unrealistic? Yes, it is, no doubt. While I'm here, I might as well address one of the other games in the reboot series, and that would be the New Colossus. I haven't really talked about the New Colossus, and there is a couple reasons why. One is because Blazko does get a bit of a nerf during the first half of the game. Since he can no longer move his legs, he's physically relying on a power suit instead. So that pretty much serves as the explanation as to why he's still being a badass. The only example I could really think of is where Blazko gets decapitated. Couldn't really apply that anywhere in the script though. Even then, he gets a super soldier body immediately after, so all of his feats from there on can just be explained away by the super soldier body. And that is the end of the video. Tell me if I got any type of terminology or medical knowledge wrong, since I'm not an expert, once again. If you do have any other points to add on, please leave a comment down below. Anyways, I will see you later. Goodbye.